Are you waiting for growth to just happen? In this episode, we're diving into intentional strategic leadership development and why success demands more than just good intentions. Today, we're going to learn how to overcome the gaps holding you back and start growing on purpose because your best leadership won't appear by accident. It's time to break through the barriers and reach your full kingdom potential, and your journey starts now. Today, we're about being intentional when it comes to your growth as a leader, and it's all right here, right now, and only, yes, only on the Five Gifts podcast. You're listening to the Five Gifts podcast, a weekly show designed to equip leaders in the Spirit-filled church. I'm Bruce Ritter, and along with my co-host Charles Russell, we offer insights for leading the local church in the fullest expression of Jesus. If you're interested in learning more about practical theology, the gifts of the Spirit, and spiritual disciplines, this is the show for you. Welcome to the Five Gifts podcast.
Spirit-filled minister ready to take the next step in your ministry training? The Servant Leaders Cohort will help you earn your BA, MA, or DMin. We offer in-person instruction in a small group learning environment that is affordably priced. Instruction happens in monthly 2-day intensives in the Triad of North Carolina. Degrees are approved and conferred by Vision Christian Bible College and Seminary. You can earn your bachelor's in 2 years, a master's in 15 months, or a DMin in 18 to 24 months. For more information, go to fivegifts.org/SLC.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us today on the Five Gifts podcast. What a pleasure it is to have you viewing or tuning in, however you are consuming this episode today. Thank you so much for being here with us. We've got a great day in store. We're talking about leadership development, how to be intentional in developing as a leader. But before we get into that, Bruce, it's good to see you today. How's everything going in your world?
Going well. This is my daughter's last day of undergraduate class, and so she still had exams, but I'm feeling like a dad who's watching his daughter grow up just one more time. So processing that, but I'm excited and proud of her, and but that's what's going on in our household. I want to make a comment at the teaser. Someone asked me last week. They said they get a chuckle out of every time we say, only on the Five Gifts podcast, and I just want to say that's absolutely right. We're the only ones talking about this stuff, at least on this channel and on this podcast. So
That's right.
that's a little disclaimer, but you know who you are, the person that brought that up, and I just want to give you a shout out.
Well, I don't know who you are, but hey, thanks for tuning in. Only right here on the Five Gifts podcast. I'm glad to have
Hey,
you.
his name rhymes with Heb Wogard.
Oh, all right. Well, that's a little bit of a clue. Thank you, Pastor Heb, for your insightful comments. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, today, Charles, we begin a series on leadership development. We spent quite a few weeks just talking about the five gifts of Christ in Ephesians chapter 4, and but today we're going to may open it up a little bit and talk about how to develop as a leader. And so we're going to tackle quite a few of the issues related to principles of growing. Not just as a leader, but you bring your personhood, you bring your gifts, all that is involved in your leadership development. And so we're going to talk today about why growth is not just accidental. So Charles, kick us off here. Where do we begin? What is it that hinders our growth as leaders?
Well, I think one major obstacle or roadblock that we have to contend with is just this. I think for a lot of folks, I've had to wrestle with this kind of a default mindset that says, well, growth is just going to automatically happen. That I'm going to gain experience and I'm going to grow through that. I heard, if I called his name, most of us probably that listen to this podcast would know. So I'll try not to divulge any names. But this person was speaking and talking about leadership and said that someone was talking to him about the amount of experience that they had gained over the years as a leader, like around 20. I'll just say 25 years, and the question was posed to this person: how much has changed? How much has been different in those 25 years of experience that they were proud of? And they said, well, nothing's changed. I've done the same thing every year for 25 years. And so the leadership expert, his takeaway, his point was, well, they don't have 25 years of experience. They have 1 year of experience done 25 times. And his point was, there hasn't been any growth. There's been a year of growth, a year of experience, but a year of growth in that. But nothing's changed. Nothing has developed over this time, and so we have to tackle that and understand that. Look, growth does not just happen. It's just we're just not going to fall into it. It just doesn't happen. Growth has to be, and growth must be intentional. If we're going to grow as leaders, it doesn't happen by accident. It happens through intentionality. Real personal growth occurs when you and I, when we actively pursue it. I think that word intentional or being intentional, intentionality, that's the key word here. Think about the home or the office that you're sitting in right now, or maybe the car that you're driving in, the phone or the device that you're watching or listening to this episode. Think about all these things, your home, your car, your device, whatever. All of these things were built or assembled according to an intentional and even intricate plan. They just didn't form. They didn't just come together. There was an intentional design. There was an intricate plan that allowed these devices, our home, a vehicle, to be assembled and to form and to come together. So we have to take this mindset of intentionality, and we've got to intentionally prioritize our personal growth and make it a focal point. And when we set this focus, what happens is it allows us to seize opportunities for development. It enables us to learn from our experiences, and it helps us to continue progressing toward our potential. So I think from the very outset, Bruce, as we're launching into this discussion about leadership development, is the key. I think a key idea for us is to really kind of brand that word, sear that word in our conscience, if you will. The word intentional. We have to be intentional. We have to be purposeful in pursuing our growth. And if we will, just phenomenal things can happen and transpire. Transformation can take place. The more we become intentional about our growth, then the more growth actually takes place. But as simple as that sounds, we can't overstate how important it is in this idea of being intentional and in growing as leaders or parents in our relationship with Christ. We have to be intentional in all of these aspects. So, Bruce, thinking about that, what are some hindering mindsets to our personal growth?
I think it is important to talk about those mindsets. And Charles, and we prepare for our podcasts, and you and I are both pretty avid readers, and so they're books that we come across. And so one I thought it'd be good to reflect on, because there's so much in it. It's a book about leadership development, but it's a book by John Maxwell. It's been out for probably over 10 years now. I want to say it came out in 2012, but it's I believe it's the 15 invaluable laws of growth. And so there's some gaps that he offers in that book that I think maybe we could reflect on. And you know, and I know that these are some of the things that I'm thinking of. It's kind of where my point of reference is when you talk about hindrances in a growth mindset. I think this offers a really good list. So we'll reflect on these just through John Maxwell's writing. But one of the first things he mentions is the assumption gap, and that's the thinking that, you know, growth is going to just automatically happen. And one reason I think that is a pretty valid mindset that hinders growth is because, you know, one of the unspoken ideas is that, and it's reinforced because you think about how we get on our education track from kindergarten to high school. Even after high school, if you go to technical school or you go to college, maybe even get your master's or go even further, I think we're kind of in that vein of thinking that growth is just going to automatically happen if because we've been enrolled in learning environments. And so you think the first 18 to 20 years of your life, you're put in growth settings. You're going to school. You're on a track. Your learning is being evaluated. You're sitting under professional educators. And so, you know, I think we get in the idea that, and we're so impressionable, you know, during that time that we absorb and we take in and we're going to begin to process ideas. And I think you're just in a mode of learning for that first third of your life or fourth of your life where, yeah, you know, learning is an everyday thing and there's a structure and a process to it. And it's not always easy. You know, everyone struggles, I think, in their educational career, but the truth is you don't have much choice about it. You've got to go to school or you go to the truancy office. But, you know, we get on the learning track, and I think once that's over, especially when we get into our professional lives, and if you're a pastor, we're talking about you too, obviously, but we get on a learning track, and once that's over, many times the habits of learning are over. And we don't always have the same accountability. We don't always have the same connection. And we just don't have the same process-oriented approach to learning. So if someone assumes that he or she is going to automatically grow, the likely outcome is limited growth at best. In fact, you know, I think I love information, and I've really come to understand that one of the things that helps me grow is I want to learn new things. I want new information. But, you know, I remember when I was first in the ministry and having stepped out of, you know, formal education, we'd go to seminars or conferences, and I craved the information, but, you know, it wasn't very transformative. It wasn't really developing me as a leader. It certainly was helping me think new concepts and ideas, but there was a lot of other things that were missing. And so even when you have those opportunities for new learning, you know, growth isn't automatic. And so again, it can be really limited. So we want to begin to think, you know, in that assumption that growth is just automatically going to happen. I think we need to ask ourselves from time to time, can I recognize whether I'm growing or not? What are the things that help me realize that I'm actually getting better at myself as a leader? So that's the assumption gap. Another gap that's related to that is a knowledge gap. And that's just simply not knowing how to grow. And not knowing how to grow can be a powerful reason simply not to grow. So if you're not conscious of your learning style or what really draws you into you know, growing as a leader, for example, for me it was information. For others, it's more relational. They find themselves connected to people and learning in those mentoring, coaching environments. But if you're not aware of how you grow the best, then I think you're hurting yourself. So it's just simply not knowing how to grow. And if someone doesn't know how they grow and what works best for them, then they need to explore that, and they need to look into ways and processes that help them continue a growth mindset. I think thirdly, Maxwell talks about the timing gap, where someone says, I'm not sure it's the right time to start. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We'll talk about those in a little bit. But one of the things Maxwell also teaches is the law of diminishing intent. If you've ever heard him teach on this, he says that the longer you wait to take action on something that you intend to do, the less likely you're actually to do it. And so if you think, when it comes to, I want to grow, but if you don't take action on that, let's say you come away from a conference and you think, I'm going to work on my administrative skills, or I'm going to work on time management. I'm going to get better at that. Well, the longer you put that off, the longer it's just a good idea, then you're going to find that it's harder to recapture that initial inspiration and urgency. And that's a real thing. I've come away from so many really good inspirational conferences, and I've got a new idea or a new goal, and there's enthusiasm that comes with that, and a sense of urgency to act. But if I don't act on it, then actually getting to it, that energy wanes. There can be a diminishing motivation over time. Just that initial spark of inspiration can fade just as you get back into the routines of even your day-to-day work. Procrastination's impact. Waiting to take action can lead to a loss of momentum. It just makes it harder to get started. So don't discount that momentum, and don't allow procrastination to take that away from you. And then also, the potential consequences of delaying action can mean missing out on opportunities. You lose focus. And I want to say this because I think as a leader, chances are you're trying to develop other people, and it's not uncommon for pastoral teams, church ministry teams, to go to a conference together, get a lot of inspiration, or think about something they need to work on as a staff, and to lose focus simply because they delayed action. So when you think of hindering your progress, you don't want to be the one doing that. So don't put off that the timing of it. Be wary of saying it's not the right time to start. It is the right time to start. And again, we'll probably get into it a little bit later. Charles, why don't you reflect a little bit on some of these gaps?
I think another one we could talk about today is it's called the mistake gap. In other words, a fear of making mistakes. Man, that's real, especially when you're in high pressure environments, the situations, which that's the nature and the context of leadership. The fear of making mistakes is it can really be a hindrance. So I think one thing to combat against that is to remember growing is not always a clean and neat pursuit. We're going to make mistakes. Everyone is going to make mistakes. I just talked to someone the other day. They were so scared of trying something for the first time and messing up. I said, look, I'm going to tell you something that's been told to me, and I'm going to pass it on to you. And it was simply this: nobody's ever good the first time you do anything. I know we tell our kids, "Oh, you're doing great," but truth be told, it probably wasn't really good the first piano recital or the first whatever, So look, everyone's going to make mistakes. So just try to understand that. Try to change your mindset in that. Once we decide to grow, we must expect mistakes, um, and welcome them as a sign that we're moving in the right direction. And that, again, that's a hard one to overcome. And I'm a person who I wrestle with this, with a fear of making mistakes. I don't want to mess up. And so I'm, it's not that I've arrived, but I'm having to continuously learn that mistakes are not a bad thing. And I have to allow that same grace to the teams that I'm leading as well, and help them to understand, you know, you're not going, you're not getting, you're not. I'm not sending you to the bench the first mistake you make. You know, you see that a lot in basketball. They talk about players playing tight and not just not being able to play and instinctually in a game, and because they're so worried about making a mistake and going to the bench at the sign, the evidence of a first mistake. Well, look, we in leadership and in developing ourselves and others, we just have to understand mistakes are going to happen. People are going to mess up, and what we have to do is shift the thinking around that to saying, look, it's not an automatic, uh, go to uh, that in Monopoly, you draw that card and go directly to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. You're being punished, and we have to turn that into a culture of learning instead of a culture of punishment. I think, and so whether we're growing personally or helping to develop others, just this idea that, look, as mistakes come, because they're going to happen, help. We have to learn, and we have to help others to learn that these are learning moments. These are opportunities to grow and to move, to make course corrections, and continue progressing and moving in the right direction. Embracing mistakes is a pathway to achievement. Look, from the simple act of walking and talking to complex tasks of riding a bike, driving a car, uh, building and pursuing a career, we learn through mistakes. Uh, and so, again, learn through those. Don't punish yourself, but allow yourself to learn and to grow through this process of making mistakes and growing, building on those things. Perfection is an unattainable ideal. Scientific evidence demonstrates that individuals who embrace mistakes and learn from them are often the most successful in change. So therefore, if you encounter a setback, it signifies your progress towards success. Persevere and keep moving forward. Don't pull yourself out. Don't stop. Don't throw in the towel and say, I messed up. I made a mistake. I'll never be any good. I'll never advance. No, you've got to hang in there. Persevere. Don't stop. Don't quit. Keep pushing. Keep moving forward. Learn from the setback and allow that to launch you forward further into your growth and development. Keep moving forward. And so, as we kind of wrap up this talk around the mistake gap here, I think this is a great coaching question. Um, Here's a great question to ask yourself: what would you attempt if you knew you would not fail? Now that kind of takes all the pressure off right there. Just in a moment, why don't you take the next 15, 20 seconds and just think, if I took all the pressure off, if I knew that I was not going to fail, there was no way failure was going to enter the picture, what would you attempt? What would you try to do if you knew that you would not fail? That's a great question to ponder. It's a great question to think through and to think around, maybe even to bring the team to think around. What, as an organization, if we knew that there was no uh, possibility for failure, what would we attempt? What would we try to do as a team, as an organization, as a family, If we knew that failure was not an option, what could we and what would we attempt? The next gap we can talk about is the perfection gap. I think a lot of people struggle with this. I struggle with this as well. But the perfection gap simply talks about waiting for the best way before starting. So imagine if you're, it's family road trip day and you're driving on an unfamiliar mountain road, uh, but not starting the journey until you've already seen the entire road. Well, I mean that might look good or sound good on paper, but the truth is, reality is, you can't fully prepare for a rock in the middle of your lane. You can't prepare fully for a deer jumping out from the forest or other traffic getting in your way. And listen, Bruce, we know about these mountain roads in North Carolina, at least, and some of it's a pretty tight squeeze, and so you've got to be prepared, but you can't be fully prepared going through a one lane switchback kind of a road. You don't know whether you're coming or going, and then another car meets you. You just can't be fully prepared for that. But that shouldn't hinder you from taking the journey. You just got to start. You've got to go and be prepared. Make a plan, but understand that you've got to hold on. You can't hold on so tight and so rigid to those plans. You've got to allow some flexibility. I know that plans are going to shift and change. But oftentimes people don't begin because they're waiting for the best way before starting. And I like to think of it. I've been thinking about this and trying to think of how to incorporate this in some of my teaching that we do with pastors and leaders. The idea of gathering a team together to plan to try and conquer the next steps or the next levels of our organization. And oftentimes what we can do, we gather a team and we say, all right, we want the best idea. We're not leaving this room until we have the very best idea for the next steps ahead. And I think we have good intention with that. And we're trying to bring some motivation and some inspiration into the room. But I think what we unintentionally do is we paralyze the team and the organization trying to find the best idea, trying to refine and to get the best idea. And what happens is we never come up with the best idea. We get stuck in a loop of refinement, trying to get there. When I don't think we need the best idea, because the objective, the goal is not to get to the next level and stay there. The goal is to get to the next level and then to then continue moving to the level beyond that. And so, what's wrong with good ideas? Can we just get a good idea that'll get us to the next level? And so let's come up with some good ideas, agree on which one we want to go with, and then let's start. Let's go with a good idea that we know will work, that'll get us there. And then when we get to the next level, then let's come up with some more good ideas. Instead of we freeze ourselves trying to come up with the best idea. I've got to have the greatest idea before I can ever begin. And what happens is we never begin because we're always trying to find the best idea. So someone taught me a great lesson years ago, and they said, Charles, you've got to quit aspiring to perfection, and you've got to begin pursuing excellence. And that's really shifted my mindset and helped me to become unstuck, to unfreeze myself in growth and development moving forward. A lot of people don't begin a growth journey because of the shame and guilt of truly admitting where they're at. This is another dynamic in this perfection gap. just realizing, well, I'm too far away, or I'm in the wrong place. I'm so far removed, or I'm so far away from where I want to be. I'll never make it, and so we kind of throw in the towel, thinking, well, I have too far of a journey to take. But what do we lose when we don't start towards a worthwhile journey? Possibly everything, possibly nothing. There's a saying that says, "Still doesn't change anything." So what do we stand to lose when nothing changes? Well, absolutely everything. So don't allow the perfection gap to isolate you and to cause you to be frozen, and to paralyze you, or the team, or the organization, the family that you're leading. I think a better way is pursue excellence, and not perfection. Bruce, any other gaps that you can help us with?
Yeah, but I got to say that last one, that nailed me personally. The idea that just having to admit where I am,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not easy. I know we're not talking about easy steps here, and that certainly is not an easy one for me. I think another gap would be your level of inspiration. I don't think it's always the most honest thing we like to talk about, but when we say I don't feel like doing it, there's an honesty there that I think is important. And in a way, I was thinking back what you shared about admitting where we are. That can kill inspiration for me. How freeing it can be, though, to acknowledge that sometimes we just don't feel like doing something, and then how much more efficiently and productively and fully we begin to live when we stop not doing things because we don't feel like doing them. I like what the Harvard psychologist Jerome Bruner said. He said, "You're more likely to act yourself into feeling than feel yourself into action."
Mm-hmm.
We have to start to feel like continuing a lot of times to get going. But once we do, momentum makes growth much easier. And I can give you a personal example. Back in February, I had been reading on intermittent fasting. And I practiced fasting for spiritual reasons before, but really began to see as I began to read on it, how impactful it could be, to health, and how, when you can reduce your glycogen stores, and begin to increase ketones in your body. There's a lot of scientific evidence that I'm not here to endorse that method of weight control, but one of the hardest things for me to get started was really admitting where I was, but I pressed through. I didn't feel like it, but I pressed through, and a few months in, I've really seen some significant gains, and I would totally concur that I didn't feel like acting. I didn't feel like doing much, but once I started acting on it, boy, the encouragement really came. And I think that's an important thing to remember, is that a lot of times the most encouragement you're going to have is in the process. And so don't put off. Again, go ahead and get started. Take action. Remember, feelings are unreliable anyway. It's action that really makes the difference. Closely associated with, I think we've kind of been on maybe the shame and guilt line of thinking, but if you're not careful, you also can fall into the comparison gap, and that's where we look at others and their successes and their. First of all, remember, you're not in that person's head. You don't know what they're struggling with, but on the outside, you're thinking, "Boy, that's easy for them. They seem to be succeeding. They seem to be doing much better than me." And if you're too focused on other people, remember that that's a huge detriment to your own personal growth. I think many dreams have gone unrealized because someone has done the thing before. They've done it better, differently, and so in comparison, we think, boy, I can never get there myself. I can never pull that off. You may have heard it said that comparison is the thief of joy. Boy, how true is that? To look at someone else and to base who I am and what I can achieve based on what I've seen another person do. But really, comparison being the thief of joy, that's only true if we feel the need to be the most grown or the most accomplished person in the room. So limit your comparison with other people. Remember, you're not bringing their gifts into your situation. You're not bringing their personality. You're bringing you. And I'm just of the opinion that God is just creative enough to do things through us if we'll stop comparing ourselves to what other people have. I think growth requires that we surround ourselves with others who are farther along on the journey than we are anyway. So rather than using people as a point of comparison, think about the lessons that you can learn from them. Think about that there are others who have done what you want to do, and they can stand as a testament to the fact that it can be done. And their experience, it can be part of informing your growth journey. Two truths that we need to remember about other people. There's always going to be someone who does it better. Make sure you understand that. And then secondly, rejoice in it. Rejoice that for their success, because you can learn from it. As long as you don't get mired into the comparison trap. Remember, someone's probably going to be looking at you as the better. So be willing to invest in your success and be an example. You can show them how. Charles, why don't you wrap up the gaps here?
Well, the last one we want to mention is it's called the expectation gap. And that says thinking growth should be fast and easy. Growth is Bruce, like you've pointed out to us, it's automatic for the first 20 years of our lives. We really don't have a choice. We're going to be in an environment for growth. It may be difficult, but again, there's not much choice in that. After that, we must choose growth, and growth is hard. And so what we're doing is we're making a choice to pursue the difficult, to pursue those things that are hard. And many of us are hesitant to choose the hard thing. As we age, as we grow older, oftentimes our pursuit is of those things that bring comfort into our lives, not that bring adversity and challenge. And so that's something that we have to, again, be intentional about. What are the choices? What are we choosing? Are we choosing comfort? Are we choosing kind of the easy street life, or are we intentionally choosing things that are going to bring some discomfort, that are going to bring some stretching, some adversity? Because it's in the stretching, it's in the conflict oftentimes that we grow and that we become stronger and we become better. Just as a word of personal testimony here, my word for the year for 2025 is the word stronger. And that's not something that I've practiced in my lifetime. I know a lot of people that's just an annual thing for them, where they kind of have a word of the year. I've never really got into that. Not against it, but it's just something that I haven't practiced. But in December of 24, I'd been thinking. Usually about October, I start thinking toward the next year, and so October of 24, I'm beginning to think, and about the next year in November, and then in December, um, I was thinking about this kind of how people have their word for the year, and I had an experience one night, and I just I sensed that experience was the Lord communicating to me, Charles, you're going to have a word for 2025, and that word is stronger. I got really excited about that. I thought, this is something new for me. There's some energy in that. Stronger is my word for 25, and I was really excited about that because I immediately I had the interpretation. I'm a good Pentecostal. And so I knew what that meant. I was going to lose weight and I was going to get fit. 25 was going to be my year. The Lord's ordaining it for me. And so I was pretty fired up. But a couple weeks, later, I just had this moment where it hit me that no, um, it's not going to be about stronger is not going to be a glamorous word for you in 25, Charles. Um, Oftentimes, I began to realize that when we become stronger, it's because we go through a lot of conflict, we go through a lot of adversity, we go through difficulty, and it's in that stretching, it's in that navigating those difficult things that we become stronger. And so this isn't a Hallmark testimony. This is real life. So I'm just telling you, we're closing out the month of April in 2025, and I don't know that I feel stronger. I feel this has been a hard year up to this point. And I'm not. I'm just trying to share and be a little vulnerable, be a little transparent. Up to this point, I'm navigating some pretty difficult challenges in several in multiple areas of life, and so I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to discern, I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to become better. I'm trying to not be beat down by all. There's just challenges coming from every direction, but what I keep reminding myself is I'm trying to overcome this expectation gap of well, the Lord gave me the word stronger, and so I think this is what that means. No, there's a different path to the outcome, and it's not going to be fast and it's not going to be easy. But I've resolved that by the end of 25 or by the end of 26, whenever the end comes through this season that I'm in, I'm going to be stronger. I'm going to have grown because I'm not going to be defeated by the pressure or by the challenge of it. I'm going to, with God's help and with the community that's around me, I'm going to become stronger as I grow through adversity and through challenge. And so I kind of went down a rabbit hole there, but talking about a word for the year. But my expectation of what that word would mean when I initially had that encounter with the Lord that night is I'm learning that my expectation of fast and easy is different than what the pathway of growth is. It's not fast and easy. It requires intentionality. It requires discipline. Requires heavy lifting, and it requires us to go through hard and difficult things. And so all of that to say this: don't be afraid. Don't be intimidated to choose the hard things, because they're going to come against us. Choose to hold on to God. Choose to hold on to the empowerment of the Holy Spirit. Choose to embrace the strength of the community that God has surrounded you with, and navigate through the hard and difficult things, and allow the Lord to grow you and to develop you and to transform you as you go through hard and difficult things. The truth is, there is um, there is little that's valuable in this life that is easily won. If anything, we can minimize how difficult our growth journey is by becoming consistent about preparing for that. Look, the things that we'll hold valuable, the things that we'll cherish, are the things that will be hard fought victories. They're not just going to be handed to us on a silver platter. We're going to fight for them. We're going to scratch and claw and do everything we can to secure that victory. And so I'm just saying, it's going to be a fight. It's going to be tough, but you can, to a degree, minimize the difficulty of that by being consistent in how you prepare for that. And so that was kind of the purpose of some of these gaps that we've talked about, to not to dismiss the difficulty of it, but to at least help us to minimize some of that in helping us in how we prepare to face this growth pathway. Well, Bruce, there are some mental shifts that will help us in this pathway of growth and development. Any thoughts on some of what those mental shifts are and what they could look like?
Sure. Growth does require making some shifts in your thinking, and you might be surprised that really some of the most important keys to growth are not due to external factors. They are internal. And so growth requires making some shifts in our mindset, our thinking. So one place to start is to change the questions you're asking, change the mindset, shift your mindset from how long is this going to take to how far can I go? I've certainly been a victim of wanting, to be the expert overnight. Again, I've shared that I'm an information junkie, and so I want to be I want to be the expert. I want to know more than anyone else. I want to have the information and have it accessible, because truth is I probably value it too much. And so to me, the process is the challenge. So, objectively, I think we understand that getting proficient in something does require time and practice. And so for the information junkies like me, the learners like me, we need the thrill of progressing from, being the beginner, the novice, to being really adept. And so that can be especially frustrating for complex skills in leadership. So, like with many of the things that I approach, I need to break it down into small actions where I can see progress. So, for example, suppose I see a need to grow in my preaching or my pulpit communication. Well, I'm going to start with a specific mark for growth. Like for me, that would be the appeal or the invitation. And so I need to think about in terms of how far can I go? Instead of how long is this going to take me to get better, I need to think about how can I make my appeal stronger? How can I make the invitation part of my message stronger? So that'd be the first one, Charles. Again, changing the question and the mindset. How about you?
I think a second would be this phrase right now here. Do it now. Do it now. Come on, everybody. Just say it with me. Do it now. Whatever you've been planning, whatever you've been dreaming about, whatever you've been wanting to do, just get out. Do it now. Do it now. Procrastination is the enemy of action. Waiting for perfect conditions means we never start. It's never the right time to get married. It's never the right time to have kids. It's never the right time. You've got to take action. There'll never be a perfect time to create your growth plan. Never be a perfect time to take that online class or continue your education. There's never going to be a perfect time to do what it is that you need to do to advance, whether that's your career, in ministry, in family, in fitness. I mean, there's never going to be a perfect time. There will always be obstacles that will be set before you. The truth is, growth does not start until you start. So taking the first step, even imperfectly, is more important than waiting for the perfect plan. Another mindset shift, another shift in our thinking would be this: face your fears. Face your fears. Intentional learning often brings two main fears. Number one would be the fear of not performing proficiently, and second fear would be the fear of new tribes. When we embark on the journey of intentional learning, we will move from starting point A to B and to C, and the people we start with might choose different growth paths or remain stagnant. And man, that's a difficult dynamic in our lives. We're comfortable with relationships that we are at a certain that we have at a certain level, and as we begin to grow, those relationships may not grow with us. They may choose different paths, or they may choose to just remain. And so we can find ourselves exhilarated with on this pathway of personal growth, but at the same time, uh, we can find ourselves feeling a bit isolated as we leave behind familiar social circles. Um, but the comforting thing is, first, uh, don't let um, that fear of isolation keep you paralyzed, keep you from moving forward. Continue to grow, continue to move forward, because what you'll discover and what you'll find is yes, you're going to leave relationships behind as you grow, but the truth is, as you grow into new areas, you're going to meet new people at points B and C. You may leave relationships that you've had at point A, but as you get to point B, to point C, and etc., you're going to find and you're going to meet new people and build and develop new relationships. You're going to form new groups and new friendships. So because you're leaving, you're going to grow into a new place of growth and development, and you're going to be around now new people who are like-minded, have like-minded goals and agendas in their development. So um, it may be it may be uncomfortable to leave point A, but when you arrive at point B and point C and on down the line, you're going to find um, familiar people, familiar folks with in their growth mindset that you can build strong and meaningful relationships. Bruce, any more mindset shifts?
Yeah, I think we need to remember that we need to look for learning opportunities. We need to be mindful that instead of accidentally stumbling upon, hey, I learned something new today, I think it's important to have the frame of mind where you're going to seek them out. And certainly we encourage you to look for informal learning opportunities as well as formal learning opportunities. So you could seek out a coach or a mentor, and we've done several episodes on what coaching and mentoring can look like for you as a leader. And so we encourage that. Sometimes you just need that outside catalyst in your life. Maybe not someone that's teaching you anything like a coach. A coach can help you actually process a lot of the learning you've already done and help you translate that into meaningful principles and applications when it comes to leadership. A mentor is someone that can help you. I mean, we talked earlier about, what we fall into with the comparison trap. Well, a mentor is someone that wants to help you, and they're probably at a level, beyond where you are. And they can talk to you about the experiences and the lessons that they learned, and they can pass those along to you. And those are tremendously important relational opportunities when it comes to learning. Another way is to look for a mastermind group or maybe a coaching group where you take the coaching dynamic, you take the reflected disciplines of learning, and you begin to process those with a group of people. I think those are highly effective. I know for me, They're tremendously effective. But as Charles mentioned, that a lot of times in leadership, you're going to find yourself isolated because you're growing from one level to the next. But the truth is that you're going to find people, if you'll be intentional about your growth, you're going to find people at the level that are desiring to take the next step, just like you are. And those are some really interesting relationships that can form, and they can happen in a mastermind group or a coaching group or a roundtable group. And so we encourage that as well. And let me add one more thing, and this is not intending to be a plug when actually I'm not being very honest. It is a plug. But look for a formal education. You think about how those first 18 to 20 years of life, that's what you did. You went to school. Sometimes getting back in that environment can be a tremendous resource. And so, Charles, as I think about the cohort, the learning cohort we put together, there is a degree involved, but we tried to put such a robust learning environment together where you're gonna track with a small group. You're gonna get mentoring and coaching in that, plus all the information that comes, kind of with all the new learning that's going to happen just in your course schedule. So, again, remember to look for learning opportunities. You could go to a conference this weekend. I'll tell you what, add some principles to that. Make sure that you have a coach or a mentor that you can process your learning with, or maybe a small group. Create a mastermind group in your church. Work with your staff and do some reading together, but use those learning opportunities, and make sure you're intentional about forming those in your life just as you need them. So, Charles, this has been really helpful for me, and to think about my experiences in learning, and I also want to just share, Charles, I appreciate you. You didn't go into some of the details, but you did share just from your own personal vulnerability, and I think that's important to remember. Man, leadership is not easy in itself, and growing as a leader, as valuable as that needs to be, it's always going to encounter difficulties. So make sure you overcome some of these internal shifts, and remember that even in some of the most difficult seasons of your life, there's growth potential in them, and allow the Lord I just think of the imagery from the Old Testament, the way that the silversmith refines the silver. There's heat, and that begins to lift out the dross and produces a more pure vessel. Remember that as a leader, that God is ultimately the one who's working on your behalf to help you to become better at what you do and to live into your full kingdom potential. And sometimes that may include some difficult seasons in life. In fact, it won't. It's not a question of maybe. It's a question of just when it's going to happen. So be mindful of that. Trust the Lord, and I believe you'll be better for it.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thanks everyone for joining us today here on the 5 Gifts Podcast. Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, and share. And just in case you didn't hear Bruce talking about it, hear me talk about it. We're pleased to announce an educational cohort for people that are active in ministry to obtain a bachelor's, master's, possibly even a doctorate. The format includes in-person instruction, coaching and mentoring, a small group atmosphere, and you can complete your master's degree in 12 to 15 months, or your bachelor's or doctorate of ministry in about 2 years. For more information, check out 5gifts.org/SLC. Remember our new website, 5gifts.org. You can check us out there and stay aware of everything that's going on and happening. Reach out to Bruce. You can find him at coachingcardia.com. It's an excellent resource to help you in your personal development and personal growth. So reach out to him today. You can find me at charlesrussellministries.com. CharlesRussellTraining.com, and I'd be honored to help you in your growth pursuits as well. Well, again, thank you for joining us today. We're praying that you grow and that you're intentional in your growth and development as a leader. We'll see you next week right here and only on the 5 Gifts Podcast.
You've been listening to the 5 Gifts Podcast. If you would like to take the next step as a spiritual leader, we invite you to visit either of our websites or contact us for leadership coaching. We can help you reach the next level in your own growth and leadership. We provide leadership, spiritual gift, and personality assessments that give you a better grasp of your leadership style. And we also create a customized growth plan that empowers you to reach your full kingdom potential. We can't wait to hear from you.